Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the latest Same Old Arsenal podcast. It's me, Suburban Gooner Chris, joining you as always. I have some special guests this weekend. It's a bit of a Gunners Town in the pub reunion. I've got from the south of the equator the amazing Mr. Paul Hepker, aka Invincible. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Good, thank you. It's funny seeing you in the morning.
yeah, I know. Normally we used to do these things in the evening, but
very late.
I'm an early bird. Dave's an early bird. We all want to enjoy our Sundays, and then the last thing we want to be doing is podcasting where we want to watch Tottenham and Manchester United hopefully simultaneously implode on the pitch later. But I mentioned it. We have the fabulous Dave Seeger joining us as well. Dave, Gooner Dave 66. How you doing, mate? You all right?
I'm very well, very well.
You looking
Good
forward
to be invited back.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you on. It's lovely to have you on. Of course, James and Amanda are otherwise indisposed, but I've got two very lovely gentlemen to join me on today's podcast as we digest Arsenal 4, Leicester City 2. Before we get into the meat and drink of yesterday's game, if you'd like to press like, subscribe, all of that sort of great stuff. There's a bell, I think, on YouTube. If you press that, then you get notifications all of the time. And to remind you all, we are sponsored by the fabulous Ruth Beck Art. Ruth does some amazing work. She's just recently had an auction. I'm just showing up on screen a couple of her fabulous bits of works that she does. If you check out her shop on Etsy, if you just type Ruth Beck Art, you can find out all about the great work that she does. So please find out more about Ruth today. Now, gentlemen, yesterday's match, I was there. I was in the ground. I took the wife, and I feel like, Dave, I'll start with you. I feel like the first place to start is probably a bit of a vibe check because you have to almost start at the end with this sort of game, don't you? Because that's where all the drama happens. So we'll go through chronologically, you know, the team lineup, the opening, first half, and all of that sort of stuff. But let's do a quick 1 minute from each of you on how you were feeling, like the vibes that you were feeling at the end of that game yesterday.
Well, you have to start with the word relief, but I actually, funny enough, you know where I sit. So I walked out the ground thinking, oh, thank goodness for that. And then I saw Troy Deeney with Alex Crook, who's a mate of mine, obviously from Love Sport days. But I just leaned into Troy and said, that's what a team with cojones does, isn't it? And he looked at me like thunder. He must have had it from other people, I guess, but I just thought it was funny. But that was it. That's the word, isn't it? Cojones. Never say die attitude. That's what teams that win silverware do, and that's what Man City have done for years. It's what Man United used to do. It's what we used to do. So, you know, you can say it's all about it's relief, and we got there in the end. But you know, we kept playing football, and that's what our team does.
Yeah, we did keep playing football right to the end, and this is becoming a bit of a habit, isn't it, Paul? Those last-minute goals, sign of a championship challenging side.
Yeah, I think so. Just sign of a side that just stays focused and disciplined and concentrates, you know, most of the game. I think there was a little bit of a lapse, but, you know, yeah, in general, I think that we are a team that just keeps going until the final whistle. And I think we managed to turn the dark arts that Leicester were producing in our favor and ended up with a whole chunk of change of time added on in the end. And we used it well, you know, so very happy with that. Like Dave said, relief. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you know, I don't know if I think I mentioned to you guys, but I certainly wrote it on the blog this morning. I took the wife yesterday. So for the last time that she came to the Emirates, because tickets are so difficult to get these days, the last time she came, we played Leicester and we beat them 4-2. So it's funny how history seems to repeat itself. But at 2-2 on 91 minutes.
I might have getting 3 years' time. So.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
if Leicester
I'll save her for a cup final or something.
Yeah.
Save her for a cup final or something like that. But yeah,
although Chris, we did go to Preston North End, the three of us together.
Yes, and we've got Preston in the.
We could do that. We could do that. We could take Nikki to that one.
Take it all of them.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. So yeah, on 91 minutes, she sat there with her arms folded and she turned to me and I'm like, it's just not going to be one of those. It's just going to be one of those games. We've absolutely battered them.
You were probably saying that after 50 minutes.
Yeah, probably. We've absolutely battered them. We deserved the win, but it's not going to happen. And she turned to me and she just said, they're going to score. I don't know why, but I just know they're going to score. And I rolled my eyes. So when it actually happened, I turned to her and I gave her a funny look and she just sort of shrugged and said, I told you. Right, Paul, let's start with, let's rewind it then. Let's rewind straight back to the start. team lineups come out. Any surprises from you? It was David Raya in goal, because I was assuming that Neto would play. We had a back four of Calafiori, Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, Saka on the right, Trossard through the middle, Martinelli on the left, midfield of Rice, Partey, and Havertz. Was that what you were expecting, or were you expecting?
I think if I'd been able to select the team, I probably would have selected that. I thought it was. I think over the last, the difficult time that we've had since Odegaard has been out, I think, some of those kind of relationships have started to be established, and people are more comfortable with their roles. I think like Trossard and Havertz especially kind of fitting in for Odegaard, and the balance I thought was pretty good with that team.
Dave, what do you reckon?
No, didn't like it at all. Didn't like Havertz. Always on the right. Didn't want him out there. Didn't think he added too much value out there. Didn't think he had the relationship with Saka. And obviously it didn't help not Ben White not playing. I'm not denigrating anything. Timber was fantastic, but there was definitely no relationship on the right, I didn't think. And I kept just turning to Steve and saying, why is Havertz out on the right wing all the time? I just thought he wasn't impacting the game, and it really frustrated me. So no, I wasn't. I actually thought it's going to sound very disrespectful to Leicester, but I thought that was the perfect. Before the game, I thought it was the perfect game to start Nweri after his midweek cameo, and we saw what happened when he came on. I just think that was the game to play him in Odegaard's role and leave Havertz up top and then choose between Trossard and Martinelli. That would have been what I would have changed. I was surprised that Ben White wasn't available after, seemed to be okay in the second half last week. But what a lovely problem he's going to have when all three are available. So,
yeah, and Ben White.
I would have preferred Havertz up top, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I was talking with friend of the pod, James Johnson. He was saying that beforehand as well. He was saying now is the perfect game to be playing in Nweri. I just wasn't sure. Arteta tends to be in these sort of games. He tends to be a little bit more pragmatic, and I think he's knocking on the door, though. Again, I don't want to jump backwards and forwards because we can go through the chronology. But when Nweri came on, he was quite impressive. He had a really impressive cameo, like within the first sort of few seconds. Paul, he's made the goalkeeper tip the ball wide. But would you have had Nweri on to start, Paul?
Well, yeah, I need to caveat my answer in what I thought. Honestly, I didn't think Arteta would start the youngsters. I think he'd given them the game in midweek. So from that point of view, yes, Nweri would have been a great selection. And what you said, that team that you suggested, Dave, would have been great in an ideal world. But it didn't even cross my mind that Arteta would start him. Not yet. I don't feel like not yet. He deserved to, and when he came on, I mean, he really feels like he's letting the shackles off and starting to play that unrestricted, creative, vibrant, flowing, football that he's got such a good name for in the academy. I mean, it was good to see him apply that at this level. And yeah, he was great. He was fantastic. And I think he's earned it. He's earned a starting place now. I think Arteta's only got to grow in confidence with his performances.
I think he's knocking on the door. I mean, you can't say that after midweek and then after that 15 minutes that he's not. He doesn't. If you spun somebody around and said, this lad who's just coming on, like, how old is he? Ignore the fact that he looks like he's clearly about 16, 17, but the way that he moves, the way that he the strength that he's got, the way that he glides across the pitch, he looks like somebody in his mid-20s. So perhaps that is something that we will see more and more than we actually thought we'd see. I thought he'd be like Bit Park Cup, like League Cup player, and that's it. But the more and more you start to see these cameos, the more impressed you get. Dave,
if you think about it logically, Chris, if you add together the minutes that Vieira, Smith-Rowe and Nelson got between them last year, he's going to get all those minutes. Because there isn't that, if you look at an attacking midfield or wide role where he can play any of those roles, he will get all the minutes they got. I think
it's a great observation.
So he should get quite a lot. He should get quite a lot of minutes. The other thing that worries me slightly when you're thinking about saying about the size of him and his stature, and he reminds me not comparing ability, but physically, the impact that Chamberlain made when he first came to Arsenal, when he burst into the side at Southampton. He was a 16, 17-year-old with the body of a 21-year-old, like Rooney was. And where he reminds me of that, his upper body strength for his age is ridiculous. He just brushes people off him. My only concern is that if you look at what Smith Rowe's doing, is there a place regularly as a starter for a dribbling attacking midfield player? Because he's basically got rid of most of those sort of players, to be honest. I mean, he's not played a dribbling. That would have been Smith Rowe's role, I thought. But if he wanted that role, why would Smith Rowe not have taken that role? So that's my only concern. But he'll have even higher levels, hopefully. So
yep, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Um,
So right, let's talk about Paul. Let's talk about the opening sort of salvos of the game, because this is an interesting one. We've spent the entire week being told that Arteta's like Jose Mourinho and Tony Pulis, and we all knew that this is just media hyperbole. And I think I wrote about it yesterday in the blog. Like, when you look at the numbers of how Leicester set up, they were going to just sit deep. They're a team that has some of the most touches in their defensive third and in their own box, and we were going to come at them yesterday, and for the first sort of 15 minutes or so, you could tell this was just going to be low block FC. How worried were you, Paul? Because we scored on 20 minutes, so let's do the lead up to that 20 minutes. But after about 15 minutes, I remember turning to one of the blokes behind me and saying, "This is the classic archetypal type of game where if you get an early goal, all bets are off." But the longer this goes on, the more they're going to start to be empowered by the fact that they're keeping us at bay. Were you kind of, when you were sitting there at home watching it, were you kind of feeling the same thing, or were you kind of like, nah, this is just a matter of time?
I was impressed with how he managed to keep the ball. I mean, they were chasing shadows. We seem to be, if we look at what happened with us against City and how ineffective City were in trying to break our low block. Like, I looked at what we were doing and saw 15, 20 times the amount of creativity, and I thought, we're going to get through, and it just felt like it was going to be a breakthrough when we did. But the longer it took, like you said, the more nervous I got, and then I started wondering. Martinelli had a chance and missed it. There were a couple of moments where it felt like people on the edge of the box who could have had a clear shot didn't take it, which we'd criticized City for, was that, it didn't seem like anyone wanted to take that on. So I started getting nervous, I must admit, and I was really glad when it finally did happen, the breakthrough, and I was very glad that it happened, to Martinelli, because, yeah, he really needs it. Yeah, does need it.
Yeah, Dave, were you the same?
You could tell by his reaction. You could tell by Martinelli's reaction how much it meant.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Dave, from your point of view, because obviously you're in the ground like me, you and Steve having a chat to each other for the first 20 minutes, were you the same? Were you kind of just thinking we just need that one and then the floodgates open?
No, I did think before the game it was going to be a cricket score, to be honest, but it didn't turn out that way. But no, I didn't. I wasn't worried that we weren't going to score. The worrying thing came later, but no, I thought we looked pretty incisive, and it is difficult without Odegaard. Let's not beat about the bush. We are talking about one of the best players in the Premier League, and he's our most creative player, and he's also a player who can bypass a man by beating him. We don't really have that centrally without him. That's why and where he's exciting, because he will. But we can't always pass through a low block when your best passer in the side isn't there. So we have to try different things, which is why I was so pleased with the way the goal was created, because I'm very, as you both know, I am incredibly frustrated by Gabriel Martinelli, and it's not a case of not wanting to succeed. I just can't see the way he's playing now, how he's going to be the player I thought he was going to be. Because if you look yesterday, he got the goal and it was a great position. What I loved about it was the fact that with Timber or Saka, it was Timber in this case, that got to the byline and we cut it back low, a la Freddie Lundberg style. We need to be doing that from both flanks. Martinelli can't do it. Sorry, caveat that. Martinelli won't do it. He can beat any fullback in the country for pace. He gets to the byline and he has to put it on his left foot. He has to, sorry, his right foot. He has to cut back inside. Look at Saka; he'll use his right foot. It's his weaker foot, but he's improved it so much it doesn't make any difference. Martinelli will shoot with his left foot, as we saw. He one skied over the bar, which should have been a goal, and one that was well saved. If you look at every time he got to the byline, he won't cross with his left foot. And all he has to do is learn to cut back when he beats the fullback to fun, which he can always do with pace. And we will score twice the number of goals we score with him in the side. If he doesn't do it, his place is constantly under threat for me, which is why we've been linked with Florian Wirtz, presumably, in January, because he's a completely different level to Martinelli. And I hate saying it, because 2 years ago, I thought Martinelli was going to be a world beater. But he just frustrates me so much that he won't even try to cross with his left foot. And if he does it once and it doesn't work, he gives up for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, Dave,
Kills me watching it.
Yeah, and Paul, I want to get your view on this as well, because it can't be a technical thing, because as Dave just said, like, he seems to be quite comfortable shooting with his left foot. And it can't be a technical,
but he doesn't. Yeah. I wouldn't say he's comfortable shooting his left foot, but he will pull the trigger.
Yeah. Paul?
I mean, I'm Mike McDonald, who writes on Gunners Town and is a coach, often talks about Martinelli's body position. And I think, for shooting and being over the ball and, off his left foot, I think that body position just about works. But I think for that ability to open up and lean back and send something across along the floor, like a good cross or in the air or whatever it is, it feels like he's too, like, it's the mechanics of it, he either does like a skid stop kind of cutback, which is like a half, like I'm going to roll my ankle and stop the ball and pass it that way. But it doesn't seem like he's, I would love to see him practicing that, the Sterling cross against Bolton or Nwaneri, that perfect, imagine that's the goal mouth, and just put it in the middle of the goal mouth for the onrushing forwards. I would love to see Martinelli.
Can you imagine Sterling getting to the byline and not using his left foot? He's a right foot player.
Yeah.
Of course
and his cross for Nwaneri,
all the best players will.
Against Bolton was fabulous. It was curving away from the keeper. Any one of those three onrushing forwards could probably have got to it,
And if you think about the way in which we crash the box as well, like, it's just tailor-made for that ball into that, the cliched corridor of uncertainty.
Dead man zone, yeah.
You've got
either the defender's going to score rushing back, or the
Saka and White do it all the time. We're missing the trick, and I'm astonished, given the coach he is, that Arteta hasn't honed in on it.
Yeah.
Because it is just as simple as practice, and to give yourself the confidence in match day if you're practicing it at training. But honestly, I genuinely fear for his career if he can't make that step, which Saka, they were at the same level 2 years ago, Saka and Martinelli, same stats, same level, same contribution, same excitement level, and look at the difference now. We've got a world-class footballer and another one that we all still think's got potential. That's crazy. The disparity between the progression. And if I'm a right back, I think it's probably, it's one of your easiest days, and it should be one of your hardest. It's only 2 years ago that Klopp was saying this guy can do anything he wants in football, because he was so frighteningly good. And it's like when Theo Walcott first burst into the side. No one could live with his pace, and then he started trying to do things other than pace. Forget it. You've got the pace. You can beat any fullback. But then you've got to do the right thing after you've beaten the fullback. What's happening is he's beating the fullback, and the fullback's running back, and he's got another chance because he cuts inside, and the fullback thinks, "Thank you very much. He's beaten me, and now he's giving me another chance." It's crazy.
Yeah. I think also, Dave, to compound Martinelli's problem going forward is that, one of the reasons that he was so valued, I think, by Arteta was his defensive work in helping shore up a left side that was always a little bit weaker on defense with the kind of Zinchenkos and those kind of people. And he had a role to play there. But now we've got Calafiori, we've got Timber switching across. We've got some really solid defense, and so that side of the game, I think, is not as important. And I think it's going to make it even harder maybe for Martinelli going forward.
Well, he's not going to succeed there. The other choice is we play him closer to the striker, because on the last man, he's the most dangerous, and we don't use that very often. We don't put the ball over the top or the through ball for his pace.
So we get ourselves. We've had a 5-minute where it almost sounds like we're being borderline negative here, because ultimately this is a positive sort of situation. So let's move this on to the remainder of that first half, because again, it was pretty much just all Arsenal. I'll give some half-time stats, which I just thought was interesting, and then Paul, I'll get your views on the goal and Trossard's goal, because I thought it was a very, very tidy finish in off the post. But I thought the first half was essentially Arsenal attack versus defence. Like at half time, 76% possession to Leicester's 24. Expected goals 1.32. This is just on the first half. 13 attempts, 3 big chances, 6 corners, 380 passes to Leicester's 124. Leicester had 1 shot in that first half. We absolutely battered them. And I'll be honest with you, when that second goal went in, I thought like there could have been an argument for Calafiori potentially drawing a foul inside the box, but it didn't matter because within that passage of play, ball cut back, really tidy finish from Trossard, and it's right in added time of the first half. And to be honest with you, I turned to the wife and said, let's go get a beer because this is going to be a procession. And like you said, Dave, it almost felt like this is going to be a cricket score today. Like we were so comfortable.
I said, at least we can relax in the second half now to stay. At least we can relax in the second half. That's my words. Yeah,
exactly. Paul?
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Before the game, the pundits were saying, that if we win and if we got a better than 4 goal difference against Leicester, then we'd go to the top of the table above City. And I was like, wow, 4-0 against Leicester? I think that's kind of doable. And then once we got that second goal just before the whistle, I was like, okay, no, this is great because hopefully this will be like a 6 or a 7 and we'll be like 3 goals up against City and then everybody can just shut up, So what happened, but it wasn't quite like that, was it?
No, it really wasn't. And as Avon just said in the chat, the start of the second half, Partey giving the ball away quite quickly. And then the whole Jamie Vardy foul, a Saliba foul on him, like never in a million years is that a foul. Vardy's basically just tripped over his own foot. And then Saliba picks up a booking for it. But this is how good funny me saying this now, but we are so good normally defensively that I thought to myself, well, it's fine. This will be nodded away, no problem. And so when you see that in real time and you see, at first I watched it and thought David Raya just was flat-footed. But Dave, like when you see the replays, Leicester have scored with essentially their first shot on target and it's a deflected one. So I don't really think you can put too much blame towards David Raya there. Can you apportion any blame to anyone there? Because it wasn't a free kick in my opinion. James Justin's headed it at Havertz. It's taken a deflection and it's just a bit of a spawny goal, right?
It's just one of those things. I think maybe the referee was evening up because I think the Vardy foul when we scored our first goal was a foul. I think that was a free kick to Leicester. No, I do. If we're honest, so maybe the referee's subconsciously evening it up, thinking, I'll give Vardy a foul because he's a bit upset with me, sort of thing. But yeah, I don't think there's any blame to anyone really. The second goal, however, very different.
Well, we'll come to the second goal, but Paul, like thoughts from you watching that? Obviously, in South Africa, were you kind of like? Could you see that was a big deflection on the TV? Because
no, at the time I thought. At the time, I kind of wondered how Raya was beaten so easily because he kind of did a weird flappy kind of thing, and I was like, that's not like him. To be honest, I felt, I don't know, maybe it was that you look at you correct your hindsight based on something that happened after your hindsight, but it did feel to me like David Raya was like a little bit like below his normal level in the game. I don't know if that was maybe just, the goggles that came after the goal. But then when I saw the deflection, I was like, okay, the poor guy had literally invested 90% of his energy in jumping this way. And he had like 8% to try and correct it. So I think
I do think he wasn't 100% fit. I think on his kicking and that, I think he was not.
Yeah.
He's played, but I don't think he was. I think he was probably 90% fit. Yeah.
It just felt like there was maybe a little bit of he was carrying something. But when I saw that deflection, I was like, okay, well, that's right. And then my next question was, what was Havertz doing like 5 meters in from everybody else in front of that line? Like, well, how did he end up there? It was it was a bit strange.
Yeah, it was an odd time to score. It was an awkward time to score. I'm seeing a few people in chat talking about Thomas Partey. Can I get a few views? So Jobo has just said that she's losing patience with Partey. Fiona's talking about Partey giving the ball away a lot. What's your view, Dave, on Partey's performance yesterday? Let's do a minute or two on that before we go into anything else, because I didn't think Partey was that terrible.
When he started, I'll touch that Steve and said, Partey's really raised his levels. He seems to be finally getting back to where he was, and then he gave the ball away. But it's difficult for him because I think he has to know he's caretaking at the moment, isn't he? You know, I mean, he's not. I don't think anybody thinks that when Mourinho, Odegaard, and Rice are fit, that Partey's going to be a starter. So he's playing with that pressure on his shoulders. So I think maybe even with his experience, he's trying a little bit too hard sometimes. I think he's trying to do a turn which 9 times out of 10, you know, he would have done when he was at his peak. You know, turn away from the ball or put it through someone's legs. And unfortunately, they're just not coming off for him at the moment. So he probably needs to get back to just doing the basic stuff really well. And it's also difficult because I think it's I'm not great at tactical formation stuff compared to what I used to think I was anyway. But I think when at the moment, well, these young people they know so much more than I. These different formations in different transitions, I'm like, whoa. But it seems to be more like a 4-2-3-1 at the moment without Odegaard. So Rice and Partey are both, you know, sort of equally playing as a 2 rather than sort of Partey on his own. But I just think, yeah, I know what people are saying, but I think he's a player under pressure, and he's going to be. I'm not saying he's going to be our Mo El Neni for the next season, but him and Jorginho are going to be our first changes, aren't they? They're not going to be regular starters. So, you know, I don't think too many teams other than Man City will have better stand-ins than Partey and Jorginho. So it's great. It's a good position to be in, but I do understand what people are saying.
I think you're right. I absolutely think you're right. And if we put this into some context, like we've had a pretty tough start to the season in terms of fixtures, but also in terms of injuries. Let's not forget, like as the Masked Cannons just said, like Marino is effectively going to replace Partey and will probably drop Rice back into that 6 role. And if you think,
I believe so.
If you come at it from the context that we're playing without some key players here, and so we just need to get by, you know, in 6 weeks' time, we could have a midfield that looks like Rice sitting, Marino left 8, Odegaard right 8, and in the League Cup games or whatever it is when Partey or maybe he's getting 15, 20 minutes in a Champions League sort of decide or, you know, the last 15 minutes of a Champions League game in a midweek because we want to fresh legs. But Paul, do you want to just say a minute or two on Partey and then move on?
Yeah. Like I mean, I've seen this argument so many times and this criticism of Partey, and I get it. There's some important passes that you know maybe go awry, and like Dave says, sometimes it seems like he's trying too hard. But when I watch him a lot because I do feel like he's a player that gets unfairly judged because so much of his game is about being in the right position, breaking up play, you know, being cool under pressure. If you watch him in the game, he's in that space that, you know, for as an outlet for the person who's got the ball, you know, to get out of trouble. He's a kind of get out of trouble card, you know, and sometimes he's in a position that maybe is even worse than the predicament to other persons. And his ability, I see maybe 5 or 6 times in a game, his ability to drop a shoulder, to feel the danger around him and just do the one thing that makes him go that way and the 2 defenders marking him go the other direction. I mean, there's so many things to his game that I look at and I go like, that counts, you know, for something. I feel like the mistakes are magnified and the qualities that maybe Arteta sees in him, which is why over the times that Jorginho and Partey have been available for selection and Arteta's gone with Partey, I think is because he really does offer a lot, you know, and like Dave said, those hints of that kind of imperious Partey that we were all hoping to get. I think it's still in there. I mean, the guy is just solid, you know, in so many ways when it counts. That I don't focus as much attention on those mistakes. I'd rather try and fail. I mean, there's 4 great defenders behind him when it does come off and when he does do those, you know, those.
But also, we do all know that he's in the last year of his contract and he hasn't been offered anyway.
Yeah,
he knows that. You know, so you know, again, it's down to the individual, isn't it? Do I want to go out with a bang and win some trophies in my last season before I disappear off and make fortunes in, you know, the Middle East, or do I just sit and feel sorry for myself? And I don't think he's that sort of player. So I think he'll fight, and I think he'll have a prominent role to play this season. I just don't think he's going to be, you know, a starter every week.
I'm just saying. Often people say, "Oh, you know, put Jorginho in Partey's shit, just drop him. He's error prone. He's all that kind of stuff." And I just feel like it's a very like short-sighted way of looking at what else he contributes, even above what Jorginho does. You know, I do feel he's a much more front-footed, assertive, pretty quick on his, you know, quick decisions, So those things I think appeal to Arteta, and especially now in the season where it seems like we're not taking as long as we did maybe last season to get the ball up. We're trying to progress it really quickly, quick free kicks, except for the dark art games, quick free kicks, quick throw-ins, move the ball, like let's move. I think that's something that he's kind of concentrating on. I think Partey's quite good at that.
Yeah. So we've got up to the first goal so far, which was on 47 minutes, and then because it happened so early, I was a little bit concerned that this might be a case of, this is going to be one of those second halves. But we basically just turned it back on and created chance after chance after chance. We had, between 47 minutes and when they scored on 63, there was a double save from a corner, Gabriel, and then Calafiore, really good save from the keeper. There was a good save from Havertz, I think, was the flicked ball. And Trossard's forced a shot off the post as well on 58 minutes. So it felt like just the third goal was coming. And then that second one, to me, just came as a bolt out of the blue. Again, Leicester scoring with their second shot on target of the entire game. It was a little bit, Dave, of kind of like the old school, maximum punishment for the minimum amount of effort. I don't know if that's the right word.
Do you know something?
Put together.
Yeah. Do you know something? I went. I think there was an injury shortly afterwards, so I took the opportunity to dash to the toilet. And in the toilet, whilst I was doing my business, I was listening to Nigel Winterburn on the club commentary, and Nigel Winterburn has arguably one of the most boring voices in football. However, he did say you can't account for that finish. He said, but when I was playing football, in my role, you don't let them get the cross in that easily. And that's what he said. He said, your job is to stop the cross. That's all I was told. That was the first thing in my job. Everything else was a bonus. You're a fullback. You've got to stop the cross coming in. That cross should, in his view, and he was probably right, and he knows a lot more than me about playing that role, it shouldn't have been allowed to come in. The fact that it was a world-class finish is immaterial. The cross was too easy. There was no pressure on the ball, and that was what he was saying. And I think he was probably right.
Yeah, I think probably there is probably something in that, because at the point in which it comes to Justin, I mean, when you actually watch the ball, it must have been from where you sit, Dave. It must have been directly in line with you. It starts about what looks like 4 yards outside the post. It starts about 4 yards outside of the post. It was a
world-class. You can't take anything away from James Justin's strike. I mean, 99 times out of 100, that's going into Rose Ed, isn't it?
Yeah,
and just fabulous goal.
If anything on the replays, I mean, the way it kind of floated in and was just enough to beat Calafiore, who was defending quite narrow. I mean, it was perfect, and Justin timed it, like you say, perfectly. What I was a little bit upset with was that Trossard was maybe 5 meters away from that and had plenty of time to see that the ball was floating over, and that it was maybe going to beat Calafiore, and that Justin was unmarked at the back. And I think you could see his reaction. He was like, "Oh, like I could have covered that, and maybe in replays, maybe Arteta will say you could have done better there." But it was an amazing goal. I mean, firstly, just the shape of it, and then the way it came off the post. Those can easily hit the post and come back and hit the keeper and go in or miss or squirt out somewhere. But it just did that perfect, back into the goal. It was a great goal. Probably going to be up there for the goal of the season, kind of for Leicester at least, maybe.
Yeah. Emerson Allen Cozy has just said in the chat, Calafiore was ball watching as the Leicester defender was free at the edge of the box, and it gave Raya no chance. Again, I don't know how much I portioned that to, as you said, Dave, stop the cross or ball watching from Calafiore, because positionally, I don't think that, Calafiore's sort of got his man. He's within a few yards of him, but he's just wonderstruck it, hasn't he?
Yeah. I don't think. Well, I mean, I think, from my perspective yesterday, Calafiore was our best player. I just can't believe after 2 or 3 games in the side that he's literally dominating. He's instructions. He was in left midfield. He was left wing. He was left back. He was flipping everywhere. And most of the time, he was, unlike Zinchenko, he was back where he was supposed to be when he needed to be. And I just think, I mean, honestly, I know Match of the Day said he should have been sent off. Can debate that, but
let's do that in a second.
Just wow. I mean, I've never. I knew he was a good player from watching the Euros. I don't watch Italian football, but the fact Arteta wanted him, and once he said Arsenal want me, I wasn't going anywhere else. I was excited about it, but I just think I just can't believe the guy. The engine, the technical ability, the positional sense, the involving other players, the communication. It's just like he's been here forever. And
Yeah, perfect.
what a dilemma! What a dilemma when White's fully fit, because White's probably been my first name on the team sheet, barring Saka, for a year. So what a dilemma Arteta's got now, because Timber's been fantastic as well.
And that dilemma is because Calafiori looks like he's sewing up that left back spot. I mean, I think we can all agree it doesn't sound too good for Zinchenko because he can't stay fit, but also he's dropping further down that pecking order, and it looks like providing Calafiori.
Zinchenko's not even a factor.
No.
Tommy Esse
I know,
is fit
but
now.
what I'm saying
he's
is
fit. No, Tommy Esse was ahead of Zinchenko last year, and he's now fit. So Zinchenko's not even second choice.
Yeah,
he's third or fourth choice.
Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is Calafiori, it almost feels like he's going to lock down that spot, and so that right back spot is going to end up. We've talked about the left back spot, us having so many left backs, but actually we're going to look at this and be saying, if Calafiori nails down and stays fit at that left back spot, you've got Ben White, you've got Timber, you've got Tommy Esse, all competing for their natural, what you'd call their natural position. And I thought Timber was okay yesterday. I thought he was decent enough. I mean, he was better he's been better in previous matches, but he had a decent enough game. Whether or not Ben White is going to come back in, I mean, it's a lovely challenge to have. Let's talk though about that.
He did once, Chris. Sorry, he did one bit of skill on the touchline where he kept the ball in play, literally just in front of where I sit. I was like, double take. I mean, what? I mean, for a fullback, the quickness of his feet, Timber, is just crazy. It's
So let's talk about that. That match of the day, said Paul, that he was lucky to stay on the field. I actually thought he just pulls his leg away, and I didn't even think there was that much contact for that second one. What I do think there was more contact on was, again, I'll rewind back to the first half. Oliver Skip, that must have been straight in front of you as well, Dave. Oliver Skip going in over the top of the ball, studs up on somebody's ankle. Match of the day didn't even show it.
No.
Paul?
He did it to Saka on the edge of the box as well in the second half. He did it to Saka on the edge of the box in the second half. Arrived late, foot stamped him, studs on the top of the foot. They didn't even blow it up for a foul. They kept playing. I mean, that Skip. I mean, oh, my goodness, it felt like half of that team was ex-Tottenham players. It was disgusting.
Did you see my bet builder? Did you see my bet builder tweet?
No.
I had a bet builder yesterday, right? And every section of my bet builder, have a score, trust on everything. I had 4 things in there, all 3. The one that I didn't get, that meant I didn't win lots of money, was Saka wasn't fouled 3 times, apparently. In the whole game, Saka wasn't fouled. He was fouled about 10 times. But the referee kept playing an advantage every time Saka was fouled. So, according to Paddy Power or Opta, whoever done, I didn't win my bet. It was shocking.
Oh my god! And he doesn't get the assist either for the goal, because the Trossard thing was actually a deflection. It would have been 6 in a row, which is like.
Yeah.
So
do you know what was one
thing?
Go on, Paul.
No, you carry on. We'll answer Chris's question later.
I was going to say, talk about you was going to say about the Calafiori thing, because for me, it was a nothing incident, and I don't know why they made such a meal of it on Match of the Day. But go on.
You know why, Chris? Sorry. And it's because I've just noticed more and more since the season began, like the level of gaslighting and trolling by the media, by even like, journals like The Athletic. Everything used to kind of always be filtered through an Arsenal lens. So if it was like Brentford loses to Southampton, how will it affect their game against Arsenal next weekend? It's like, you know what I mean? Like, hang on a second. Like everything has to be for the Gooner clicks, and it's all, whether it's Carragher and Scholes and Keane and Neville and all those guys, it's all gaslighting. Just completely always.
To be fair, Paul, it was Theo Walcott on Match of the Day. So,
I wasn't watching, but I'm just saying I'm not surprised that that everything, like if you watch any of that stuff, it's like you walk away from it going like, like what logic do you see this one thing and you don't see these other things? Like, it's the definition of gaslighting, not mentioning Skip's fouls or why he stayed on the field or Saka's fouls, none of which were called. But they bring up the one thing that's going to trigger the Arsenal players. They do it on purpose. It's because it's engagement.
I think to be fair, they sort of, I know exactly what you're saying, and you are right, particularly with Sky. On the BBC, I think it's a case of they talk about what came up in the manager interview. So Steve Cooper said Calafiore shouldn't have been on the
Yeah.
pitch. Therefore, they have to look at that. That's why. I mean, I don't think the BBC were deliberately highlighting it.
Yeah, I get a different feed, so I don't have that.
Arteta's didn't mention Oliver Skipp. If he had, I'm sure they would have looked at that. I know you are right, but I think on the BBC, I think it's fairly impartial, to be honest.
Dave?
Yeah.
Dave, can I ask you then, where do you stand on this idea of gaslighting? Because I don't want to feel like, are we all a bit just too sensitive as Arsenal fans? Are we getting a bit too sensitive for this and there's a little bit too much of a fury? Or is there something in it?
I mean, there is something in it. I get more annoyed about the conversations around referees and I used to try and rise above it, but the not booking other players for kicking the ball away and us, that's annoyed me more. The dark arts thing, and I said this yesterday at half time to people I was chatting to, I think it's quite funny how annoyed the Arsenal fans are getting because, I mean, are we not the same fan base who's been lauding Ben White as the Lord of the Dark Arts for the last 18 months? Are we how many memes did you see of Ben White trying to pull off Vicario's glove last year? I mean, we thought it was fabulous, right? And this week, we're being accused of a thing that we've been lauding for 12 months, and we're all upset. Why?
Yeah.
We know we're great at the dark arts. We think we're brilliant at the dark arts. We love the fact we're good at the dark arts on corners, particularly Ben White. And now people are saying we're good at the dark arts. We're like, how dare you? How dare you? Of course, we're 10 men. We're going to play like that.
There's some dark arts that you can wear as a badge. You know, like the Ben White's. You know, like seeing Kyle Walker trying to do it to Gabriel and then marking him for the City goal, like the tap, and you know, that was funny. When Ben White does it, it's, you know.
Do you know what, though? Do you know what?
We love it.
Do you know what?
But what I'm saying is, sorry, just quickly, just finish the thought, Chris. So, you know, they're out with the stopwatches saying, oh, you know, we had 4 players going down and Raya took an extra second and a half for every 26 kicks that he took. And then you go like, yes, but Rodri ran in front of Havertz and pretended to get knocked over and lay down for like 4 minutes at the beginning of the game. Like how does that not add up to every second that Arsenal wasted in, and our players went off, you know, the ones that went down with cramp actually got substituted. So it just feels like it's just like this hypocritical, it's really just trolling. Honestly, it's just trolling because there's no balance in it. It's just there.
We're hypersensitive, Paul, because we're hypersensitive because it's us. You know, Man City have been, and Pep's sides, ever since he's been a manager, have been accused of tactical fouling. Always. Yeah. I'm sure Man City fans are. I mean, maybe they're going, oh my God, why are they accusing us of tactical fouling?
But why were there 40 articles about Arsenal wasting time in a game where I think City wasted more time?
I think that's the issue. So
that's what I mean. That's why I'm annoyed. Not at the badge or the criticism. I'm just annoyed that there's no equality in that kind of judgment.
The thing that for me, I think, is probably frustrating fans, it's not that we're being accused of the dark arts. It's probably that it seems to be, it becomes more of a media story than anywhere else. Everyone does the dark arts, but it's actually because it's more of a media story. And so for me, I'm more annoyed that all of a sudden this is an issue and everyone needs to make a big deal about it. Whereas previously they haven't, rather than, oh, we don't do the dark arts, how dare you? It's more, why is the media suddenly picking up on this? I do want to get to.
I'll tell you why. Because we're a much more interesting club and we're a bigger club. That's why.
Active fan base. Yeah.
No one likes us. We don't care.
Yeah,
exactly. That should be our motto. Victoria Concordia Crescent. Nobody likes us, and we don't care.
It goes back to the George Graham days, doesn't it? Right. Let's wrap up today's game before then we talk. We'll look a little bit ahead to PSG before we wrap up today. Those final few minutes. So I already gave my story about my response, but it's a shame that Trossard's goal goes down as an own goal because the impact that he's made since he signed for us, Paul, has been amazing. The amount of important goals that he scores, like you can go back to like Bayern Munich last season, or the second goal to what we thought was going to make this a comfortable afternoon yesterday. You know, he scores in injury time. Yeah. He is such a big game player for us.
Yeah, no, he's been amazing signing. I mean, I remember looking at him at Brighton. You know, there were a few players, Matoma, him. You know, like a couple of players that you're like, that'd be so great to have that kind of, you know, that quality, that person that just has that confidence, the ability, his finishing. He's a bit like Jota. You know, you'd give him like a sniff at goal, and he seems to find that, you know, find the back of the net, and that's an amazing quality. We've often had players that have, like miss the dartboard more times than they seem to hit it. It's great to have one person who has 2 chances and scores with both of them. He's been a revelation, a great find.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Dave,
It's going
thoughts on that goal?
It's going to be amazing. And I actually, going back to the match of the day, I really liked Mika Richards' punditry there, because I was thinking during the game, our callers aren't as good as they normally are on both sides. We're overhitting them. And then when Mika Richards talked about it, literally we were almost setting them up for 4, because every time they're all covering what they think we're going to do with Gabriel coming in, and actually it's been overhit to the back post and we're creating havoc. And he showed 3 instances where we nearly scored, and then the 4th one we did, because they were leaving Trossard or Martinelli, whoever it was, on the back post unmarked, because they were so worried about our normal, Gabriel Saliba charging in. And I thought that was really interesting, because I actually thought 17 corners, we haven't hit a good one yet, but maybe it was all Nicholas Joven has to vary it up, doesn't he, I guess, because people are going to get used to it. So I thought that was really clever, and Trossard's positioning was really clever. I think it's what's going to be fascinating when Odegaard's fit and Mourinho's fit, because basically Saka plays, doesn't he? So you've got 3 people competing for the left flank before January. And as BD Youssef said, Trossard is Mr. Efficient now. I've heard that he doesn't like not starting. He doesn't like the super sub role. He's banging on. He's a bit of a pain in the arse, apparently, around Colney. He bangs on the door all the time, saying to Arteta, look what I'm doing. Why am I not starting? And after the first 2 games where he started Martinelli, then Trossard came in. Because of injuries, they've both been playing. And now we've got Sterling as well. So you've got 3 people arguably competing for that one role when everyone's fit. So it's going to be fascinating, because Trossard does not like being a sub, apparently.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I find, as you said, the dynamics. But the good thing is we've got so many games coming up. You even look at the fact that we've got PSG in midweek. Like, we're playing. Sterling is effectively a 3rd choice. I mean, imagine having somebody as good as Sterling, and we got him on the cheap as well, as a 3rd choice and an option who can play across the front 3. There's lots of talk around how Arsenal. We're still getting this from the media. Arsenal need a striker, but we've got goals in this team across the team. As long as the likes of Martinelli starts to kick on now in terms of his finishing and end products, he's been snatching at things. Trossard's doing the business. If Sterling can at least contribute, you've got Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz again, Paul, yesterday, is up his 4th goal of the season. I remember the beginning of last season writing a blog and saying, why are we signing a centre forward who doesn't score goals and doesn't make assists? I'm happy to hold my hands up and say totally wrong there, because his contribution it's not like back in the day when we used to get told that, well, look at all of the work Lacazette does, even though he doesn't score. And to me, Lacazette in his final 2 years was completely useless and redundant for us. But Kai Havertz puts the effort in. He moves across the pitch well. He defends well. And actually, he's delivering a end product. I think he might get to, in all comps, I think he might get to 20 goals this season. And in fact, he's already on 4.
He's already on 4 in 6 games, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He's almost a quarter of the way there, and we're so early into the season. So let's just touch, Paul, just before we then look ahead towards PSG, and then Dave, some thoughts from you on that goal. I did think that Gabriel Jesus just held onto the ball a little bit too long, and if he looks up, he could have given Havertz or whoever it was. I think it was Havertz and was it Trossard as well? But there were 2 people coming in on the other side of the defenders for a tap in. Gabriel Jesus probably has to do a bit better there. But do you want to talk a little bit about the goal? And then at first, I was a bit bemused as to why it was even checked by VAR, because I thought it's fairly obvious that Havertz firstly was onside when the ball was struck, and then Justin kicks the ball against him. So Havertz was almost straight away like, why is this offside?
I think the thought was that it had squirted maybe off. Who is it that had gone down? That was on the floor in front of Havertz. It wasn't Jesus. It was whoever else had run up with Havertz, and Jesus had gone slid in. Trossard had slid in, and I think from the and the linesman perspective, because the goalie was in the way, it looked like Trossard had squirted it out to Havertz instead of, not touching it at all. But it was Martin or whoever it was, Justin, that hit into, as Andrew Mangan says, hit into Havertz's goalies. He scored with his goalies because that's how good he is. No, but Havertz is amazing. He's a revelation as well. I mean, it's Trossard, Havertz. It's such a change having these kind of players, these reject players I'm talking about from other teams, that have lost the coach or whatever, coming to us and actually finding a home. There's a great interview. You should try and see it. I think it's on Sky Sports with Kai Havertz. And it's a lady, I think, a woman who works for Arsenal is interviewing him. He's sitting on a couch, and it's like 10 minutes long. It's a great, really, really good interview. And he just talks about how he feels so at home here, and he feels like it's family, and he's learned things that he didn't know existed about Arteta. And so the woman interviewing him said, "Can you tell us some of those?" And he went, "I'm not telling you anything that's going to give away any of our secrets." It's a really, really great interview. He's like, "Oh, you think I'm going to tell you that? I'm not telling you."
You just watch him on the pitch compared to when he first signed. It's like watching two different men completely. He's just so confident. I can't wait to see him back up where he should be. Right. I think actually what you mentioned, Jesus, his confidence is obviously not high at the moment, and as BDU said, we can hold judgment, but I think another option for him, given what we just highlighted on the left, is the alternative to Havertz doesn't only have to be Jesus. I think maybe it is time to give Martinelli his head through the middle, and not starting necessarily. Just let's see, last 20 minutes when everyone's tired. Remember that game last year against Palace when he came on and scored 2 goals in the last 15 minutes, both on restart, off the last man, through the middle, great finishes. And I just wonder whether there's a way we can get Martinelli more central, playing off the last man, because I think that if he's not going to do the left wing stuff, then maybe that's an option. Because Jesus, if we get an offer in January, I think it's going to be hard to turn down from Saudi Arabia. Because he's just, I don't know, it's like, again, it's the opposite to Havertz. 2 years ago, I thought Jesus was the answer to all our problems when he started that season on fire. And you thought, wow. And now just injuries and confidence. I don't know what it is, but
maybe he'll kick off in the Champions League because he's been good in that competition. Maybe he'll be our Champions League guy, along with Trossard. Just those big moments, big occasions, because he has the application. Like nobody can fault his work rate and his. I mean, even against City when he came on, and he worked on the right wing and he was defending from the back. I mean, he was really classy. He did a lot, to avert the pressure. He
definitely could be the Saka alternative if Saka's due to be rested, because obviously, Pep always played him on the right, didn't he, in Champions League?
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about Gabriel Jesus is more that he just can't stay fit, and so that's why I think you're right. If an offer comes in, the club will probably look at it and say, "Look." Arteta might even say to him, "Look, I love you as a player. I'd love to keep playing you, but we can't rely on somebody that." It's like back in the old days, Dave, when we used to talk about Aaron Ramsey, brilliant player, but it takes 6 to 10 games to get fit, and then he plays 10 games and he's injured again, and that's what that's what Jesus is like. And this team is not standing still. It's a constantly evolving beast, and that's what Arteta does. Like, you just look at the fact that Zinchenko changed our world, and now we've just been talking about how he's like 4th, 5th choice left back, and Gabriel Jesus is exactly the same. Arteta is ruthless, and this team constantly.
But if he can stay fit for the next 3 months before the January window,
but he can't. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, we'll know in January if he's on the bench again, then or in the.
But it's interesting. It's interesting what you're saying, Paul, because maybe and as I said before, we've got plenty of games to be playing. We've got more Champions League games this season.
And a small squad. We've got our squad's not that big.
Jesus loves the Champions League. So maybe that's when he's going to get saved for the week. Let's talk a little bit, just as we wrap up then today, gents. Let's talk a little bit about the game in midweek, PSG. Quite excited for that one, actually, because I think it's going to be a real test for us. But again, it's... the first game against Atalanta, they very much sort of tried to sort of sit back because they knew Arsenal would come onto them, and I think it ended up being a bit of a stalemate, Dave. But what's your kind of expectations? And you might as well give me a prediction then for the PSG game.
Well, I think he'll go full strength, given that Southampton may be low on confidence, not the strongest opposition. Maybe he'll ring some changes next Saturday and go full strength. On Tuesday. I haven't seen much of PSG. Obviously, I know what their track record's been in Europe over the last few years, so they are a test. They're probably on paper, one of the harder games we have. But I think Arsenal thought. I mean, what you're not going to get is a team that's going to sit back and defend. PSG are going to attack, and I think it suits Arsenal. So I think if it's a proper game of football, I think we're a better side right now. So, but I don't think it'll be easy. I mean, I'd like a 2-1 or a 3-1 maybe, would be my prediction.
Yeah, you pick one, 2-1 or 3-1. What's it going to be?
3-1.
2.5-1.
By the way, on predictions. Last time I was on, Chris, when you had your 1 in, 1 out, 1 to bang, I did say Ethan Nwaneri for this season. Remember that?
All right. Paul, what do you reckon?
Wait and see.
No, I think it's going to be. It's going to be a tough game, but I think that the Emirates crowd will bring the support. I think Champions League under those lights is just, it just raises the game. It's magic, and I think that our defense is better than their attack, and their attack is good. And if we can if they keep throwing themselves up against the cliffs that are Saliba and Gabriel and Timber, and I don't see much change in the back line there, Calafiori, I think we'll have opportunities up front, and I think we'll take them. So I'd say 3-1 to Arsenal.
I mean, you look at that. You look at the PSG team that played on Friday. So they've beaten Rennes 3-1. And then the sort of names that stand out: Hakimi, obviously they play at right back. You've got that Zaire Emery, who's a young, very talented player, good with the ball at his feet. Dembele plays wide right, and they've got Barcola playing wide left. But it's not the sort of team that a few years ago I would have looked at that PSG team and said, "You've got some big names in there." It's not as massive. It's not as scary an opposition as you would have thought maybe 3-4 years ago. So I'd fancy us at home. I think he might do a little bit of rotation. I'm thinking this might be a nice little 2-0. You remember when we played Napoli those years ago and Ozil scored a very fantastic goal and we just kept them at bay and it was quite a comfortable game. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for a 2-0. But gents, it's been absolutely amazing chatting to you today. Some really, really interesting thoughts. I like the conversation about Martinelli. I think that's definitely one that's worth exploring more in the future. Definitely as a centre forward as well. Whether or not Arteta ever does that, like we've talked about, how could Zinchenko play as a midfielder? But Arteta, when he gets something in his mind, he just doesn't deviate from it. And so I wonder if Martinelli is going to be the same. It's going to be.
I think Zinchenko's behind Miles Skelly now as well.
Well, yeah,
probably
good
is
game midweek as well. But, thank you very much for those people listening. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do one final question just as we wrap up, because we've had one that's come in from Avon. So I'm going to ask this to you, Paul, and then I'm going to ask this to Dave, and then we'll be on our way for the day. So Avon said, have we banked our season on 5 players in Jesus, Georgie, Partey, Zinni and Tommy who can only provide limited minutes? We sort of touched on that, but let's answer that. Paul?
No, I don't think so.
I understand that
no.
question at all.
I'm just going to say no. I don't really understand either, but I'm going to say no.
Well, I think, I think that person, Avon, is indicating that she thinks Jorginho and Partey are not able to play many minutes. I don't think there's any indication. I mean, Jesus and Zinchenko I get, but Partey's been fit all season. Jorginho's been fit all season. And I mean, are we saying Jorginho's so old he can't play twice a week? Well, in which case, fine, but we knew that anyway. So I don't really get the question.
I wonder if it's more a question around the rotation. So Arteta's got a set of maybe 13, 14 players, and I think most of us think there's about 14 of them that you can argue the toss with. So we talked about Trossard, Martinelli, or you talk about maybe Marino. Some people have talked about Partey maybe on the edges of that. You've talked about the defence. You've got Calafiori, you've got Ben White, we've got Timber. There's a few positions where there are a few question marks, but I suspect rotation means that those guys will get those minutes. But behind that, it's how many minutes do the others get? And if they're all injured, for example, does it then start to get a little bit of a challenge? But I'm the same as you guys. I don't think we need to worry too much about that because of the strength that we've got in our team, the depth that we've got in our team, and also the versatility, because a lot of these players can play in different positions. So you've got Durin Timber and Calafiori who can play. Durin Timber can play across the whole of the back line. So he's a very versatile player. So for me, I think also, we've got less to worry about.
Also, Chris, those players that in that thing, I mean, they were relied on towards the end of last season with some of the other injuries that we had that got us to almost winning the league. Like they're not El Nenis, they're not, we're not talking about, like real scraping the bottom of the barrel kind of squad players. I really believe our squad has been upgraded so much. I mean, especially with Timber coming up back, I mean, you know, almost like a new signing. Calafiori, Marino, we haven't even seen yet, and he's meant to be a beast. I mean, I just, you know, once everything's up and running, I feel like we're like 140% stronger than we were last season.
Yeah, we are.
And so for those guys to be the bottom of the barrel people for us, I think we're in good nick, because they can, even if they just have like a 2 or 3 game little run where they're covering for some massive injury stint, they can all produce. They're all great players, you know, I think.
And what's interesting is essentially what we've had is the floor has been raised of our squad.
Exactly.
And that's a really, really positive thing. And that really, really bodes well for the season itself. Right, we're going to wrap up for today because Dave needs to go and take his dog for a walk. And I need to go and wake my missus up and take her for a walk as well. But Paul, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
And Dave, thank you very much for joining me, sir. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. I think James is going to be back post PSG. We'll keep you posted. But again, if you put a like or a notification on the Same Old Arsenal YouTube, then you'll get that emailed straight into your inbox when we're going live next. But from myself, from Paul and from Dave, thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you next time on the Same Old Arsenal podcast. Bye-bye.